All right, we are live. Well, not live, but we're recording. Anyways, um, Brad, good to see you.
You too, Pat.
It's the year end.
Yeah, hard to believe, man.
Merry Christmas.
You as well. Top 5 tennis strings.
Top five tennis strings. We got to do this. I did this some years back. We gotta bring this back and see what's changed, see what's stayed the same, and kind of have our own picks on the top five tennis strings 2024. And you'll find that a lot of things don't change over time. Um, Sometimes we buy into different things that are set out there, and there's a number of companies. Everybody's promoting their new strings, their best strings. But what really sells? What are people really using? You have clients that use certain strings, so of course that's what you're going to be carrying. You have certain favorites. I have certain favorites that I like to string, that I like to promote, that I like to use. And so I think we're just going to kind of start with looking at what are other people in the industry that publicize kind of what their top picks are, and what maybe moves market or moves the markets, or what even people use as a reference. And so the first one I like to start with is the RSI top five. And so that's, for anybody that doesn't know, that's the Racket Sports Industry Magazine, which I think it's changed its name over some time. The US RSA uses this information, and it kind of connects with that. The RSI is not only for tennis, it's the whole racket industry. It's a monthly publication that you can actually get online for free. So I've talked about it in the past. I've used the information from that as well, as far as the strings. And what I did here is I put the January to September. That's because right now the year end has not quite come out yet for 2024. So they use the January through September top selling strings at specialty stores, year by year to date units. And so I thought I'd do a comparison, because the strings in 2024 look pretty similar to the strings back in 2019.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of ironic. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that. Now, these are from the RSI, what's selling out there, and these are the top selling strings. And so I just wanted to bring that to light, and kind of, we all know these, right? Babolat RPM Blast. That's
Rafael Nadal made that popular. Well,
Yep.
I mean, maybe others as well, but
Yep. Solinco Hyper G. We know Solinco's been there recently
huge in
as a
college
market
tennis.
leader, right? As a market leader. Head Velocity, Luxilon Allure Power, and Wilson NXT. Now, Wilson NXT has been around for over 20 years, I would think. I used it way back at the beginning. I don't know if it's quite 20. It's probably about 20 years. I think that string's been around. That is definitely one that's here to stay. And then you can look back in 2019, Wilson NXT, Babolat RPM Blast, Luxilon Allure Power. Of course, back then they had, it's hard to read there, they had Head Synthetic Gut PPS, and then they also had the Wilson Sensation in there. So they had a couple of the Wilson multifilaments in there. So you can kind of see from their perspective, not a lot's changed. Those are some that we all know and that we all use, and that are all good winners. So like, if you only were to carry a few strings, if you were to use this as a guide, that's probably not a bad place to start, because this is what a lot of people are buying. And who knows why they're buying it. Of course, we can really get into reasons why retailers buy certain strings, but that's not the purpose of this video today. So does anything stick out to you on that, Brad?
No, I mean, you've got three, I guess, polyesters. You got the RPM Blast, Hyper G, and the Allure Power. And then you got two, I guess, the multifilaments, the Wilson NXT and the Head Velocity. Head velocity is like the cost of NXT, and it's slightly softer. So if you're looking for a soft arm-friendly string and you don't want to pay $21 for NXT, you can spend $11 and get the head velocity. Of course, you can get them cheaper, both of them, if you buy a reel.
Right.
And then you've got the ALU Power, which is maybe the most popular polyester on the Pro Tour, right? You've got RPM Blast, which is very good, and Hyper G is very, very big in college tennis, and so they've done a great job at marketing Hyper G and stuff. But
yeah,
it's a good group of strings if you're going to carry on a few.
Yeah, this is a good place to start. And anybody who's watching this, please chime in on what your top picks are. I'd love to hear what everybody is using, what their top picks are, what their top strings are that they're promoting. Now, again, this is kind of, what's selling, right? So of course this would be from the perspective of the customer, what they're wanting and stuff. Maybe not as much as what we're playing with ourselves, but that is what everybody out there is playing with, that's selling. And so I wanted to kind of veer off from this and take a different perspective. And I just kind of did a Google search, and I found, well, of course there's Tennis Warehouse, right? And so they have their top 5 listed. So we can kind of go off that. And that is basically just I just took their top 5 picks that's on their website. So they have it separated a little bit different. They have it in the different 5 categories, right? Synthetic gut, multi-filament, natural gut, polyester, and a hybrid. And so these were their picks, one for each of those categories. So we could argue that there's a 6th category, but we don't really need to get into that.
And keep in mind, I think Wilson owns Luxilon now, so that the champion's choice is natural gut and ALU Power.
Yep, of course, right. So that's changed a little bit. So synthetic gut, I would totally go with this one. This would be my pick too. Prince Synthetic Gut with Duraflex. That's been a solid string for many years, and it's easy to string. It goes good with a lot of hybrid setups, and definitely with the Duraflex on it, not the Prince Synthetic Gut without the Duraflex.
We'll get that in multiple colors too.
Yep,
for the
and
young
it's a good.
kids.
Yep, it's a good price point. It's a good synthetic. If you're just gonna, I would use that one. Every day. That's a solid 16, 17 gauge. They're both good. The multi-filament Technifiber NRG2. For that one, I would put NXT all day long. Well, okay. If I was playing with it though, I would put Sensation. I don't like it. NXT is easy to string. Everybody loves NXT. It's got great playability, 16, 17 gauge. But I just feel that the Sensation has a little more pop. It's not quite as elastic. The elasticity is not quite as, it's not as bouncy, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like the feel of the Sensation. Plus, Sensation's a lot cheaper too. So I'll use Sensation 17 any day if I want multi-filament. Technifiber Energy is not bad, but I think it loses. For me, I've always felt that it loses a little bit more tension, a little bit quicker, and you always have to string that a little bit tighter, a couple pounds tighter, because when you're pulling that on a constant pull machine, you could see it just keeps going and going. I mean, it just really pulls. So, natural gut, Babolat, Touch VS, yeah, there's no doubt. Now the Wilson, I would say I do like the Wilson because the Wilson has that coating on it. So for stringing, I've always felt that the Wilson is a lot easier to string than the Babolat. It doesn't unravel as easy and things like that. I mean, if you're kind of new to stringing and you're just not very comfortable with stringing natural gut, I would start with Wilson gut versus the Babolat gut is all I'm saying. They're both good. They basically probably come out of the same factory. I don't know. But they're both solid, and price points probably pretty comparable on both. But I do still like the Touch. I don't know, Brad.
Yeah, I like Babolat Touch also. One of the things I love about it, just has a unique smell to it. They make them out of the same factory, but they smell nothing alike. It's like a new can of tennis balls. That Babolat natural gut has a smell that I don't know what it is, but I like that. But yeah, with the multi-filament, like you said, I do love NXT. It's a comfort string. So for my teaching and stuff, if I were playing, I'm not sure, maybe I would, take what you're saying with that sensation where you can swing a little harder. It doesn't like take off on you quite as much. You can control it a little bit more. I also like Wilson Sensation when I have a big hitter who is having arm issues and they want to go from a full polyester to a hybrid setup. I'll get the Wilson Sensation in a 15 gauge, which is 1.35. So it gives them a little thicker cross so they won't break it as fast, but they still get the comfort of a multi-filament.
Yeah.
But the polyester ALU power is,
yeah, that's pretty solid. I mean, Solinko's up there. I mean, I'm almost, later on when I go over my picks, I've got 5 different picks that I put down too. But as far as right here with the Lu Power, I'm not going to argue that one. That's a great.
It's
string.
just Solinko is much better at tension maintenance. So that's the only thing. The Alu Power just loses tension quicker. But you shouldn't keep polyesters in your rack. It's very long anyway. But we all do unless we're earning a living on the Pro Tour.
Yeah, exactly right. And then of course on this category in this context, with Tennis Warehouse, then the last one they put on there is the hybrid, and Wilson Championship Choice. I didn't really in my category in my top 5. I didn't really put a hybrid setup. Now there's a lot of different hybrid setups you can purchase. I normally make my own, so I don't really have anything specific I would talk about in this category. And I was thinking there's actually probably another category, then that would be spin. I mean, you could probably make 10 categories if you want, but for spin, that would probably be. I think I'll talk about that in my 5 top picks. Yeah. So that's this is what Tennis Warehouse has. We kind of took a look at these 5 and kind of discussed that a little bit. And then I also just went on a Google search and I looked up, this is one that came up toward the top of my search. Tennis Companion is the name of the website. And they did theirs a little bit different. They had all these different strings, and then they put them in categories of power. They show you the power, the spin, the control, the touch, the comfort, durability rating. And then they have the top strings selected, and these are the 5, and then it tells you what the category is that string is in. And so a lot of these are not unlike the other ones that we just visited on the RSI magazine, and then also the Tennis Warehouse, right? There's we have Babolat VS Touch, we just talked about that. Wilson NXT multi-filament, yep, that's there. Luxilon Alu Power, yep, same thing. Solinko Hyper G, that's what we were talking about. You were talking about Solinko versus Alu Power, right? And then my pick, the Prince Synthetic Gut. I mean, they didn't have the Duraflex on this, but so not anything shocking here, yeah.
No, and it's all in a name too. I mean, it's all marketing to Alu Power. So you're thinking wow, this is going to be a powerful string. And look how low that is compared to every other stringer. Your synthetic gut has more power than the Alu Power.
Exactly.
But those are nice to look at, and they're neat to see. There's, for the for those that really want to dig into the science behind the strings and stuff, there's a lot of different things out there.
And honestly, you cannot beat Babolat VS Touch.
No, I love it. I strung 2 with it yesterday. I've got like 5 or 6 clients now who use natural gut. One of them in a hybrid, the rest in a full bed, and I love it. And if I could get half sets of Babolat at the same price as buying a full set, 2 half sets for the same price as a full set, they just charge a premium for half sets. But it's so much easier to manage than having to uncoil a full set, measure half of it, then use that for the mains. I just love the half sets, but they're a little bit, few dollars more.
And so by the time you're done, you could be looking at $100 bill, right, for stringing a racket with Babolat. And so, I think that's going to be a deterrent for a lot of people, but there's nothing like that string for many reasons. So yeah, and anybody out there listening, if you have some experience with that, good or bad, put a comment in, and we'd like to hear what everybody has to say about that. All right, I'm going to get into my picks. Now we've kind of looked at what's out there. So we switch back. All right, top 5, my picks, and then Brad, you chime in on each of these too if you want. So durability. So my pick
Sure.
for durability is Luxilana Lu Power. That is my choice. I think that is
Yeah.
pretty durable. Now you were saying Solinco, you feel that is more durable, or was it that it kept tension better?
No, just it has a little bit better tension maintenance. So,
Yeah,
but not
yeah,
for durability. I would agree with you
yeah,
with the
yeah.
Lu Power.
Yeah, and now of course this is not going to be the most durable string. There are other ones out there, but for me, for what I'm going to use, for what I'm going to string, for what I'm going to recommend to other people for a variety of reasons, this would be my pick for that. So again, durability. Okay, so playability. What string would I feel is the best playing string out there? I think I already talked about it earlier, but Babolat Touch. That's got to be it. You know, if I want
Yes,
ultimate
good.
playability, that's what I'm going to be promoting, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
For spin, oh, I didn't set this one up right. Okay, well, I revealed it. Solinco Tour Bite. I think for spin, this thing is pretty solid. It's going to give you a little bite into the ball.
Good string, popular string in college too.
Yeah, what would be your pick for spin?
Tour Bite's really good. Hyper G is excellent also. You know, even
Mhm.
though I think Hyper G is more spin than ALU Power and the others, but this would be a good one. I would say one grievance I have this year. I think a lot of stringers, a lot of players are most sad about the disappearance of Gamma Glide this year, which was specifically for generating topspin because it gave you that snapback because it was like an ice skating rink for your crosses, and they don't make it anymore. I'm hoping they get enough calls that they bring it back on the market. But that's it's more than just a textured string to get topspin. You really need that snapback. And so that smooth Gamma Glide string is I miss it. I had a lot of clients who liked it, and I can't, you just can't find it.
Now, do you remember Gamma Rough?
Yeah.
That was like the worst one to string. Like I would say on a scale of 1 to 10 for stringing, that's the worst one. It would tear up your fingers, and you'd have to go so slow so you wouldn't burn it because it was so rough, and pulling it, and just it made that sound, right? That irritating. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that one was probably the worst to string. But,
and then of course the one person that wants it has an 18 by 20 pattern too.
Yeah. Oh goodness. All right. All right. Oh, I kind of did this backwards, huh? Oops.
Okay.
All right. Well, we already did that one. Okay, so let's talk about all around. All around tennis string. What would I pick?
Geez, if you're looking for
Prince
all
Synthetic.
around.
Yep, Prince Synthetic got. I talked about that earlier when we were reviewing some of the other options, or some of the other top 5s. Prince Synthetic with Duraflex. This is the all around. Like, let's say I'm just playing with an all around string. Don't want to spend a lot of money. This is what I'm going for. I'm going to 17. I mean, 16 is going to be a little bit more durable for a good hybrid setup. I'll use that. But for myself, Synthetic got 17 Duraflex.
Yeah, that sounds
perfect.
Good.
And I like it in the natural color. So it plays, I always like the natural colors. I don't like to use the colored strings just because they play differently when they don't have that extra coloring on it.
I will use this string for 7, 8, 9-year-olds who are getting into the sport, and I can tell them, hey, I have it in purple, I have it in green, I have it in blue, I have it in orange, yellow, so you can get this Prince Synthetic out with Duraflex in so many different colors. If they didn't have, if I was young again at that age, I would use just the natural color. That's what I grew up on when I was 12, 11, 13 years old, Prince Synthetic Gut, before they added the Duraflex. Remember before the Duraflex came around?
Yeah,
but that was
that gold string,
just that
kind
gold
of a
string,
see-through kind of string.
I love that. I love that string. You get maybe 45 minutes to an hour out of it before it would pop. But it was a fun string, and it was like $2 a set.
Back in the day when I started the string, and a lot of the college players and just good, solid, 4.550 players that were hitting hard, we would just do Duraflex and polyester hybrids.
Yeah.
It worked perfect. It was inexpensive. I'd use a basic polyester string, that I was able to get locally there in California, and then I'd have a reel of this, and it was perfect. Worked
Yeah,
well. Yep, can't go wrong.
that's great.
With the multi-filament, I know we talked about this earlier, so this is probably no surprise. Wilson Sensation. I mean, I know NXT is a top seller, and I would use that, but for me, Wilson Sensation I prefer, just because it's more crisp, a little bit tighter, and yet you still get the multi-filament, and it's a lot cheaper. I think it's like $11 or something.
Yeah, I think so too. And I just, for me personally, I love Wilson NXT. So that's what I would go with. But money being a factor for sure. Now I just ordered a reel of Velocity, because it is a little bit softer, slightly softer than NXT, and it's like more than half the price. So it's less than, right. It's probably 130, $40 a reel.
Mm-hmm.
So I just ordered a reel of that, just because I go through it teaching, so I'm going to try to use that instead of NXT to save a little money. I hate using my good NXT on myself. I want to save it for my clients.
Yeah, and reels versus buying sets. I know we've talked about that many times in a lot of different videos, and I think we can probably make a new video on that, and kind of just talk about when to use reels, when to use sets. There's lots of different reasons, right? Part of it's the environment, saving the environment with all that packaging. And I know some companies are starting to really think about that a little bit more, right?
Yeah.
As far as, they're not putting so much plastic in their packaging, creating more environmentally friendly packaging.
Even recycled paper.
Yep, recycled, and then figuring out, and recycled string, right? Even string that has some biodegradable. Because like if you've ever been at a tournament, strung at a tournament, by the time like you fill up those trash cans full of old string, right? Thousands of rackets full of old string. I mean, that's just all waste, So what can you do with that? So, hey, I think we did it. We covered top 5 2024. There's not really a lot of surprises there. So what does that tell? I mean, that tells me that like you can't go wrong with some of the solid strings that have been around for a while, the ones that have, think have some weight. They carry a little bit more weight because they're true, winners. A lot of people know about them. A lot of people use them.
Yes.
They're consistent. I mean, there's a lot of new strings out there that we could talk about, right? This string is better. That string is better. But, overall, if you don't have the ability to carry tons of different strings, you can't go wrong with a lot of these. Hey,
this one thing I would say is to a new stringer or someone that wants to get some new strings is, with the polyesters, I would go with a thinner gauge. I would go 1.2 millimeter, 1.25, and then with the multi-filaments, I would go with a 1.3, which is typically 16 gauge. All the companies use slightly different. So one company's 17 gauge might be 1.2. And another company's 17 gauge might be 1.25. So I always just go by, I would go for the polyesters, go a little bit thinner because they're much more durable, and they're harder on the arms. So
yeah, I mean, if you were stocking string and you had to kind of be careful how much you were stocking, I would probably stock a 17 gauge poly, not an 18. 18, I mean, I would prefer using an 18, but there's going to be less people that are going to want to play with an 18 gauge poly versus a 17 gauge. So that'd be like a 125.
And when you say 18, it's usually you're thinking,
yeah, it's like a 122.
18s like ALE powers 1.15, 1.20.
Yeah, 1.15 is a 7. I would think it's a 7. That's like a 17 light, right? So a 125.
No, that would be more like a 1.15 or 1.25. Yeah. 1.25, yeah, 17 light, yeah.
118, I think is I think the Luxilon 18 gauges, I think, are like 115 or 118.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, they're getting thinner, a lot of strings are and stuff, but yeah, for the multi-filaments, 16 gauge, a 130, 125, 17 gauge, I'd carry that.
I tell you, I like your tree in the background more than mine, man. I wish I had that palm tree. I got 10 degrees outside. You got like 75, 80 degrees in palm trees.
Yep, we are, it's 75 all year round here. So,
Jeez. Good for you.
Yeah. So anyways, I think we covered it in this video. Have a great rest of the year. And thanks for watching the channel. Please subscribe and like this video and leave a comment.
Thanks, Pat.